Alright, now we're going to cover two of my favorite sites, Google News and Google Reader. What I really like about these sites, specifically Google News, is that you don't really need to set anything up. It's just all ready to go. So Google goes through all the articles and pulls up things that are relevant to what's going on. So you can see Hurricane Sandy is kind of a big deal, and so you can see real-time coverage of the article, and as things update, as different websites post, it'll post new clips and new statistics about that. So you can see the top stories here. It kind of lists the person or thing that it's about. So there's a lot of stories about Zooey Deschanel, and just a lot of people are writing about Zoe, and so it just has a lot of the articles right there. If we go into the technology heading, there's a lot of different technologies here. Bob Ross is really high today. You'll see that the Google Doodle is Bob Ross, so a lot of people are currently writing about Bob Ross. There's a lot of preset categories, so you have top stories, US, elections is going to be very much geared towards the United States elections. Sports has a whole bunch of sports news going on. Science, it's going to have science. Pretty straightforward. What we can do though is personalize our news. So if we go into settings, we can show, we can do these sliders to pick what shows up when. So I really like technology news. I really like US news. World news isn't as important to me. Sports is not important to me at all. And so I'm going to go ahead and delete sports and science and health. I want more information about Android because I have an Android phone. And I want more information about specifically the Philadelphia Eagles rather than sports in general. Alright, and so that's added Eagles and Android. So if I click on the Eagles, that's going to be all of the news about the Eagles. Android's going to be all new Android news. For technology, Android might show up under here, especially under any article about mobile technology, but I can dedicate an entire category to it by selecting it in the preferences. So because I want to read about tech most of the time, I have Android, technology, Apple, and Microsoft pretty high up on my news source. If you want to move one item higher than another, you just can click and drag it, and then once you have saved, it'll adjust to put those in the order that you want. So you can still see top stories and then world, but then it goes right into technology and Android and Apple like I've asked it to. You can find news about anything that you can think of. So Leavenworth, let's try that. So here's all the news about Leavenworth. You can find news about any area or any object that you can think of. Now let's say you notice that you constantly go to the Leavenworth Times, read these articles. I've never been to this website, so you constantly find yourself going to the Leavenworth Times because it comes up a lot in Leavenworth News. Well, instead of reading it here, you can set up a Google Reader and specifically follow it. So right here are just some suggestions that they have for everyone. We're going to go ahead and subscribe to the Leavenworth Times. And you can subscribe to any website just by copying that website's name. Alright, so I guess 11 More Times does not have the appropriate things to be able to follow. But instead, let's go ahead and subscribe to lifehacker.com. And we'll also subscribe to The Art of Manliness. And we'll subscribe to XKCD. You can either put in the exact link or you can do a search for the content that you're looking for. Now that we have these subscriptions, anytime that a new post comes up, it'll show up in our subscriptions. So here is the latest XKCD webcomic. And here are a few of the back catalogs. But here's a webcomic, here's a lot of tips, how to do technology things, what current trends are. I'm going to show you my Google Reader just because it has a lot more than the one that I just set up. I'll do that by switching over to my real profile. So in mine, I've divided my subscriptions into tips, news, life, personal, comics, and then listen subscriptions. That's a bunch of podcasts. Let's go through comics. So here are all those Dilberts. Here's a webcomic called Dr. McNinja. The Doghouse. Diaries is a really popular webcomic. So under tips, I also have Lifehacker, How to Geek. That tells me kind of what's current in technology news. In news, I have 2 tech news websites. I don't really like reading much else other than technology news, but you could have a sports category here. And then life, I have the art. In life, I have the Art of Manliness, which I've already read all the articles from. They're a lot more. They're kind of long form, but they're really interesting if you have the time. And then personal are just people's websites that I follow as they post about what's going on in their lives with them and their kids. So if you're interested in the web around you and you know what websites you want to cultivate, you can go to Google Reader and it'll pull all of your websites into one place, kind of like a jumping board to the websites that you already know that you like. You can just have a list of everything new that's come out. This is really useful for sites like The Verge that publish quite a few things all the time. I also use Google Reader on my Android phone to just kind of scroll through what articles there are, and then I mark them and come back to them and usually read them on a computer. Google News is more for discovering news that you hadn't heard about yet and to cultivate more and more news sources. You can remember you can put in whatever category you want and then get a lot of news about that specific category. Alright, these are really 2 useful ways to make the internet work for you and to bring exciting content right to 2 different places. So go ahead and try out Google News and Google Reader.